Hello, I'm Paul Carroll, technical writer for Digital Photo Magazine, and welcome to this Understanding RAW video tutorial. This month's RAW Pullout Guide is all about learning the best methods of managing your RAW images and developing a workflow that takes your images from the memory card to a backup in a really efficient manner. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at the options and functionality of Photoshop Elements and the included organizer for browsing and managing your RAW workflow. There's a lot to cover, so to make it as easy as possible, we've broken it down into 6 individual stages. The first thing you need to do is create a really logical file structure for storing your RAW images. If you double click the My Computer icon, you can see all the drives connected to your computer. And there we go, there's my external hard drive, the free agent drive H. If I just right click on there and go down to Explore, that'll allow me to have a look at the folders on the hard drive. And on there you can see that I've got a folder called Image Library, and all my photos are stored within my image library. If I quickly explore the drive, you can see that I've got a folder for each year. And if we take a look inside this year's folder, 2009, you can see I've got a set of subfolders, one for each month of the year. And then within every month folder, I've got an event folder for all of the events that I photographed that month. This is a great filing system because it means I can always find my RAW images quickly. Well, as long as I can remember where and when I took them, of course. Okay, I'm back from a shoot and I need to download my RAW images. First thing to do is plug my memory card in via a card reader. When you connect your card reader to a PC, you'll get this Windows dialog box pop up. And from here, you can tell Windows to import your images either into Elements, Lightroom or Bridge. And it's a great way of copying your RAW files onto your hard drive, importing them into an organizer or into Lightroom, and renaming them all in one step. It is easy to do, and it will save you a lot of time in sorting out your file structure. It'll only work though when you've got images to import from your card reader. So we're going to look at how to copy the files onto your hard drive, import them into Lightroom and rename the files all manually. Then if you've already got images on your computer, you'll know how to import and rename them too. Okay, so I need to explore my memory card to copy my images over. So if I double click the My Computer icon again, and you can see that I've got a new drive now appeared within my computer, which is called Nikon D300, that's the G drive. So if I just double click on there, and I can find my images, they're in the D300 folder. Okay, so these are all the images from my latest shoot. So if I just select the first one, hold down the Control key and press the letter A, that selects all the files, including this hidden one, as long as I click OK. I can then hold down Control and press the letter C to copy the files, and I'll just minimize that, and then I want to go back to my external hard drive. So you can see in this window here I'm still exploring my hard drive, but I need to create another months folder, a July folder, to save the images from my latest shoot in. That's really easy to do. All I need to do in this Windows Explorer panel is right click, select New Folder. I'm going to call this one 07 July, hit the return key, then I can double click on that folder to explore it, and I want to create another event folder in here. So I'm going to create another folder, I'm going to call this one Viewed. Double click on the Viewed folder to explore that one, and then I can simply hold down the Control key and press the letter V on the keyboard, and that's now pasting my RAW images from my memory card over to my external hard drive. It's going to take a few seconds, so I'll join you when it's done. Okay, so that's our first stage complete. We've sorted out our file structure. We've got an image library folder sitting on an external hard drive with a subset of folders for each year, 12 subfolders in each year folder, one for each month, and then within that an event folder for every event that we photographed that month. We've then copied our raw images from our memory card using a card reader into the relevant event folder within the right month. So the next step in my raw workflow is I want to browse and edit the raw images from my shoot. And using Photoshop Elements, we do that using a built-in feature called the organizer. So when you're in the main image editing area of Elements, to enter the organizer, just click on the button in the top right hand corner. And there you go, it'll launch. If we have a look at the options under the display menu, you can see that we've got folder location ticked. And with it ticked, we get a list of the folders on our computer in this panel on the left hand side. Now this is slightly misleading because it gives the impression that we can navigate through these folders and bring up images in this area here. Unfortunately, with the organizer, it's not that simple. Instead, to make our raw files visible, we need to import them from our external hard drive into the organizer. And I'll show you how it's done. Just go up to the File menu and down to Get Photos and Videos, and from the flyout menu we want to select the third option down, which is from Files and Folders. Using the Look In box at the top of the dialog box, we want to navigate to the folder of images that we want to import. So in this case, they're the images on our external hard drive, which is the free agent drive, image library folder, 2009, July, and our event folder viewed. So I'll select one of the images and then press Ctrl and A to select them all and click Get Photos. And you can see that's now importing our raw images into the organizer. So there we go, all our raw images from our shoot have been imported. And if you want to browse through the different folders of images that you've imported into organizer, you can do that using this timeline here at the top. Okay, I'll go back to our latest import. I'm just going to come out of the folder location view into the thumbnail view and just minimize this panel on the right hand side. So now I can see all of the raw images that I've imported. I need to identify the shots that I want to delete, as well as picking out the very best shots from my shoot. And a good way of doing that is using the star rating system. And I'm going to rate images that need to be deleted 1 star, and rate the very best shots from my shoot 5 stars. Okay, so I'm just going to make these thumbnails a little bit bigger just to help the editing process. And I'm going to tick the details option up here in the toolbar just so I can see the star ratings. So when you're editing images, the images that you want to delete are any duplicates or the ones where the exposure or the focus isn't quite right. So I'm going to quickly work my way through these shots. You can see I've got 2 shots here of the same thing. The exposure of the one on the right hand side looks much better than the one on the left, so I'm just going to highlight the one on the left with a 1 star ready to be deleted. Same goes for these 2 exposures of the boats here. The one on the right is looking much better in terms of exposure and colour saturation. But a good tip when you're editing images is to check sharpness at 100%. That will really help you identify which shot you want to keep. You can always improve the colour saturation and the colours in this slightly washed out shot during the raw conversion, but if it's out of focus there's going to be very little you can do about it. To check sharpness at 100% in the organizer, simply hit the F11 key and that's going to take us into full screen mode. It will just take a couple of seconds to come up. I'm just going to accept the options there. And then up in the toolbar at the top of the screen you can see that we've got a zoom slider, and I can just zoom in to 100% and then scroll around the image using the hand tool just to check the sharpness at 100%. That's looking pretty sharp to me, so I think it's fine to keep this image. I just need to hit escape on the keyboard to come out of full screen view back to my thumbnails. And now I'm going to go off and rate all the other images that I want to delete 1 star, and I'll join you again when I'm done. Okay, so now I've done that, I need to delete these 1 star images. And I can do that simply by filtering by the star ratings using this filter up here in the top right hand corner. So if I click on 1 star images and I don't want 1 star and higher, I only want 1 star. So using the Boolean operator here, just click on the downward arrow and I can select only from the list, and that's just brought up the images from my current shoot that I've rated 1 star. So now all I need to do is click on one, press Ctrl and A to select them all, and then hit the delete key. The dialog box is saying should the selected items be deleted from the catalogue, but I also want them deleted from my hard disk so they're not clogging up space. So I'm just going to tick that box there and click OK. OK, next I want to rate the best images from my shoot 5 stars. So I'm just going to untick the filter there for 1 stars. That brings back all the images from my shoot. So now I'm going to go through my shots again and just highlight the ones that I want to spend a little bit more time on developing, because these are the images that I'm going to print, maybe enter in a photo competition or upload to the internet. So I'll pick out this image of the boat here, I quite like that one. There we go. So that's step 2 of our raw workflow completed. We've imported our raw images into the organizer in Elements. We've used a star rating system to identify the shots that we want to delete, and not only have we removed them from the organizer itself, but we've also deleted them off our hard disk to free up space. And then we've gone through the images again and highlighted the very best shots from our shoot. The next stage in our raw workflow is to rename our shots. If we want to search our hard drive and find a particular set of images a bit later on down the line, the cryptic file name that our camera assigns to the images, like DCS 10,000 for example, are going to make our shots impossible to find. Thankfully, there's a really easy way to batch rename all our photos in the organizer. Just select all the photos that you want to rename. So I'm just going to select all the ones from our current shoot. And then go up to File and down to Rename. And then all we need to do is specify a common base name. So I'm going to call these ones Viewed and click OK. And there you go. You can see, looking at the details here, the organizer has automatically renamed all of my raw images. A great tip for organizing and cataloging your raw image files is to use keyword tags and smart albums. I'll show you how it's done. Just click on the panel on the right hand side to expand it, and there's a section called keyword tags, which you can assign to any raw image. Now it automatically gives you people, places and events and other. Now within other I've created subject categories such as landscape, macro and portrait, and then I can keyword tag my raw images based on their content. Then in the future, if I want to find all my raw landscape images, I can just filter by the keyword tag landscape. Now the content of all of the shots from my current shoot is landscape, so I'm just going to click the first image and then hit Ctrl and A to select them all, and then I'm just going to drag the landscape keyword tag over one of the images, let go, and you can now see from this orange symbol in the bottom right hand corner that they've now all been keyword tagged landscape. So I mentioned smart albums, and I'll show you how they work. Up here in the albums panel, I'll just maximize that by clicking on the downward arrow. We can create what's known as a smart album. So I go click on the downward arrow there next to the plus symbol and go to new smart album. Give my album a name. So I'm going to call this one Landscape 5 star. And now I need to assign some search criteria for my new smart album, so the organizer will just bring back my 5-star rated landscape images. So first off, I need to check that I want all of the following search criteria to match. Next, I want to tell it just to find the images that I've keyword tagged landscape. Click on the plus sign here on the right hand side to add a second search criteria, and this time I want to say that the rating is equal to 5 stars. Click OK, and you can see that now in my landscape 5-star smart album I've only brought through the 5-star rated landscape images from my shoot. So in this step of our raw workflow, we've renamed our RAW files, making them much easier to find on our external hard disk later on if we need to do a search. We've also keyword tagged the images with content specific keywords such as landscape, macro or portrait, and we've also created a smart album allowing us to group images together in any way that we like based on the criteria that we specify. Converting RAW files can be quite a time-consuming process, and if we had to convert every single file manually, it would take hours. Fortunately, RAW converters are pretty smart nowadays, allowing you to apply the same adjustments to lots of images that require the same treatment all in one go. Take these 3 sunset pictures for example. Great skies, but underexposed foreground, so we need to edit them in Camera Raw. But fortunately, instead of having to do them individually, we can do all 3 together. So get them highlighted and then go up to the Editor menu and down to Full Edit. And that's going to open our files into Adobe Camera Raw in the main image editing area of Elements. And you can see from the film strip on the left hand side of the screen that we've got all 3 files open. So it's really easy to edit all 3 in one go. All I need to do is click the Select All button at the top of the film strip, and then any raw adjustments that I make will be applied to all 3 images. So let's increase the exposure by around a stop. It's made a bit of difference in the foreground, but also we need to add a little bit of fill light. So I'm just going to boost up the fill light slider to around plus 30, and there you go, you can see that we're starting to bring a little bit of detail back into the foreground there. Unfortunately we've lost a little bit of punch from the sky just by increasing that exposure, so let's just bring that back a little bit using the saturation and the vibrant sliders. We'll boost them up to around plus 20, and that's done a good job of bringing some vibrance back into that sky. And you can now see that if I click down the thumbnails on the left hand side, that those adjustments have been made to all 3 images simultaneously. So now all I need to do is click Done, and I've converted all 3 images. If I go back to the organizer, you can see that the foreground there on all of those images has been really lightened. So for a basic raw conversion of images that require the same treatment, no need to do them individually when you can convert all images together. It's only necessary to give the full raw conversion treatment to the very best 5-star images, i.e. the ones you plan to print or perhaps make a presentation with. So to do that, filter by your 5-star images, and up in my albums panel I've gone back to my landscape 5-star images, and these are the ones that I'm going to spend a little bit more time converting. When you're making advanced raw conversions though, it makes sense to do things in a logical order. That way you're not making any adjustments twice, or adjusting areas of the image which aren't going to be in your final print. So let's open up this image of the boat into Camera Raw, and I'll show you what's the best order to make your raw conversion adjustments in. Okay, first thing we want to do is crop the image. Might seem like a little bit of an odd place to start, but is there any point really editing areas of the picture which aren't going to be in the final version? Not really, so let's get rid of those pixels now, and then we know exactly what we're dealing with as we adjust our exposure. So I'm just going to select the crop tool from the toolbar here at the top. I'm just going to make sure that aspect 2 to 3 is selected, and then I'm going to draw a crop box over the image, and I'm just going to cut out this section on the left hand side here and underneath the image just to recompose the boat on the thirds and in the foreground there. Okay, I'm quite happy with that, so I'm just going to hit return. Next adjustment is to the white balance. I was shooting in auto white balance, so I'm just going to make sure that the colours are spot on just by clicking on the white balance drop down menu there and selecting daylight from the list. And then we can move on to the main meat of our raw conversion, which is adjusting the exposure. Now if all the pixels in the image were bunched up on the left hand side of the histogram, the image would be too dark, or if they were bunched up on the right hand side, the image would be too light. As it is, this image is looking pretty well exposed to start off with, but if we have a quick look at the shadows clipping warning and the highlights clipping warning, you can see that we've actually got quite a lot of burnout. So the next stage of our raw conversion is just make sure our exposure is spot on. So I'm going to reduce the exposure by around a stop, just to bring detail back into those burnt out areas. And you can see they're looking pretty good in the houses at the top now. We need to address this boathouse here on the left hand side. So I'm just going to crank the recovery up to around plus 100, and that's really brought detail back into those areas. I'm not too worried about losing detail in these shadow areas here. They're not big blocky areas of the image, and with the bright whites and some shadows, that's going to give us a good contrasty look. So I'm going to leave the exposure as it is. Okay, once we've addressed the exposure, the next stage in advanced raw conversion is to turn your attention to the colours. You can see by reducing the exposure by a stop, we've started making some of the colours look a bit murky and a bit muddy. So we're going to address that using the vibrance and the saturation sliders. So I'm just going to push the saturation up to about plus 10. Same with the vibrance, and you can see that's making the saturation and the colour of the image look a lot better. The final stage, when you've finished adjusting the exposure and the colours, is to look at the sharpening and the noise reduction. And the sliders for these are sitting in the Detail tab, which is just next to the Basic tab here on the right hand side. Now the default sharpening that will be applied, which is an amount of 25, radius of 1, detail 25, that's going to be fine for most raw images. But obviously if you need an image that requires more or less sharpening, then it's in here that you'll adjust the settings. Also, if you're dealing with an image that was shot at a high ISO sensitivity, then it may need some additional noise reduction, and you can reduce the noise using the Luminance and colour sliders here in the Detail tab. So that's the fifth step in our raw workflow, making advanced raw conversions on the very best images from our shoot in a logical order. So we crop the image first and look at the white balance, sort out the exposure before moving on to the colours and adjusting any problems with the sharpening and the noise. RAW is great for quality and control, but it's also a pain if you want to show off your work. Stick a load of RAWs on a jump drive to take to a friend, or try to upload them to the internet and you'll soon run into problems. This is when the universal JPEG picture format that's recognised by every picture viewer comes into its own. So when you're done organising, editing, renaming and converting your RAW files, compressing them to JPEG will come in handy later. You don't need to save each shot individually though. It's easy to batch process in Elements, and I'll show you how it's done. You need to be in the main image editing area, and then go up to the File menu and down to Process Multiple Files. And in this dialog box we need to set up our settings for converting our files from our current shoot to JPEG. So under this source we want to browse to the folder where our raw images are stored. So they're on our external hard drive in our image library folder 2009 July Bude. We don't want to include subfolders, there aren't any subfolders. We also need to select a destination folder to save the new JPEG files to. So click on the Browse button again, and we want to navigate to the same folder. And that means that we'll have both a RAW version and a JPEG version of all our images in the same folder. If we want to, we can also rename our files, and we can change the image size. I'm just going to leave both of these options as they are, because I want the files to have the same name, just with a different file extension, and I don't want to change their size. So I'm going to move straight down to the File Type menu, and I'm going to tick the box which says Convert Files to, and from the drop down menu I'm going to select JPEG Max Quality, and with all the options done, simply hit OK. Now it will take a few minutes for Elements to compress and save a JPEG copy of all my RAW files, so I'll join you again when it's done. So there we go. With the Process Multiple Files command complete, we now have both JPEG and RAW versions of our images sitting on our external hard drive. So the final stage of our RAW conversion workflow is to make sure all our images are properly backed up to a second external hard drive. So connect a second external hard drive to your computer. I'm going to navigate to it again using the My Computer dialog box. So I'll just double click there, and you can see that I've got my initial hard drive connected, the free agent drive, and I've also got my Western Digital 500 gig connected. So if I just explore that hard drive, you can see that I've got a backup copy of my image library, and this is an uncompressed backup copy. It really is just a copy and paste job from my initial hard drive. So if I have a look in the 2009 year folder, you can see that I haven't yet got a July folder. So I'm just going to copy that from my free agent hard drive for a backup copy. So if I just click back a couple of times, you can see there we've got our July folder. If I just hold down the shift key, I then just need to select my July folder, and then I can just simply drag and drop that onto my second hard drive. And that's copying and pasting a backup copy. So I can now delete the raw images off my memory cards, safe in the knowledge that I've got two versions backed up on different hard drives. Then if one of the hard drives fails in the future, I've always got another copy. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial, and it helps streamline your own raw photography workflow in the future. Okay, cheers.